Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for showing up for yourself. Thank you for showing up for me and for your community, and in fact, the world, because when you grow, your ability to make the world a slightly better place every day grows as well. So thank you and kudos. Now, this is going to be an immersive experience. So if you need to take a sec to close some windows, put your phone in a drawer, like me, let your dogs in, let them out. You may see Jules and Roscoe making a cameo later. Make some tea, whatever it is that helps you kind of get settled and get grounded. I would recommend that. Treat yourself to half an hour of just taking care of yourself and the matter at hand. Our brains are so tired from multitasking. Now, if you haven't downloaded the guide yet, please do so. There's a link, it's handy, grab it. Download the guide, either print it out so you have it handy if you like longhand, or put it on a second screen if that's your jam. Whatever it is that's easiest for you is the way to go. So today we're going to talk about limiting beliefs, and we're going to throw rocks at them because limiting beliefs are getting in the way of you achieving all the success in life that you want, whether that's happiness or achievement or meaning or legacy or all of the above. Limiting beliefs can get in the way of that. So here's the deal. We have 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day, and 95% of those loop day in and day out. So being meticulous about the thoughts that we entertain is incredibly important because our thoughts lead to our beliefs. Our beliefs lead to our mindset. Mindset leads to action. Action leads to results. We spend so much time talking about actions. Think about the top 10 lists and New Year's resolutions and strategic, plans, all those things that we do that are so focused on action, those rely on thoughts, beliefs, and mindset being in good shape. So we're going to talk about limiting beliefs today and get that straightened out so that you can focus on your mindset and your actions to get the reality that you're looking for. All right, so what is a limiting belief? A limiting belief is something that you've accepted as true, that's holding you back, and you don't have any evidence to indicate that it's actually true. You can have these thoughts about yourself or about the world or about your community. You can have these thoughts about coworkers. They come from everywhere. And what's really challenging about limiting beliefs is that they create kind of a tunnel vision where when you're really entrenched in that limiting belief, you don't even see the things that run counter to that. I'll give you an example from my own life. I have this little voice in my head that tells me that I'm a bad driver, but I'm not. Where it came from was a random interaction where someone said that someone told them that I was a bad driver. So I didn't even hear it firsthand. Well, I've never gotten in an accident. I have had 2 tickets, but so long ago. I don't have any problem with parallel parking. I don't know what, would make me think that my dad says I'm a really good driver. So it's I've got all these factoids coming at me saying, well, you're not actually a bad driver, but yet I have this little mantra about not being a good driver. So I've had to do some work on that and throw rocks at that limiting belief. So that's an example of how limiting beliefs can manifest. Now, before we get too mad at our brains for generating these limiting thoughts and beliefs, I want to put it out there that our brains are actually trying to protect us. They're trying to protect us from failure. But of course, in doing so, they're also protecting us or getting in the way of our success. Because we're not trying new things. We're not thinking new things. We're not putting ourselves out there. We're kind of, being protected by our brains from being able to move forward. So it's not like it comes from a bad place. Limiting beliefs are there for a reason. We can't be mad at them per se, but like I said, we can throw rocks at them. But that's something to consider, right? When you're being held back to prevent yourself from failing, you're also preventing yourself from succeeding. All right, let me give you a couple more examples, and then we're going to move over to the worksheet. let's say you are an emerging leader in your organization and you have a few people who report to you who are older than you or maybe more experienced than you. Oftentimes, a youngish leader will have a narrative that they can't get the respect of the people who report to them who have seniority over them. They might think that they're not going to get that collaboration that they're looking for. They're not going to get the respect. People won't listen to me. But if you peel that onion a little bit, what you find is that age and respect, age and collaboration, they're not the same thing. But if you're sitting there in that zone of feeling like there's no way your team is going to respect you, you may not be doing the things that create a respectful working relationship, right? You're not putting yourself out there. You're not being vulnerable. So it's one thing to say, you know, I'm a young leader and the people who work for me are more experienced than I am, so they can't possibly, you know, respect me or listen to me. And it's another thing to say, I am a young leader who's growing and learning. Oh, Julesy, you're a good boy. So that's an example of a limiting belief and how it can play out in the workplace. I'll give you another example. Let's say you find it difficult to speak your mind when somebody has offended you. You may be carrying around the limiting belief that conflict is bad. However, so you may be able to avoid some conflict by stifling it, but you're also avoiding building genuine relationships. So that limiting belief about conflict being bad is holding you back from all manner of things. And you're going to keep putting yourself in that situation with this person who continues to offend you, most likely. The alternative, of course, is to have a meaningful conversation with that person. And you can do that if you can get rid of this limiting belief that conflict is bad. So those are a couple of examples. Now, what can we do about it? One thing is we can bring awareness to the words that we use. Does this belief hold us back? Does it support us? Does it limit our potential? It's important to be honest with ourselves. Like, if it's true, if the limiting belief is true, that's one thing. If it's not true, that's another thing altogether. And we can be thoughtful about our word choice in there. Stick to the facts. So I have a coach who often reminds me that we're telling ourselves stories every day. So why don't we just make them good ones, right? You got to stick to the truth. You got to stick to the evidence. Another technique is to take a pause before you end any sentence that looks like it's moving toward a limiting belief. For example, one might be, I don't have any experience with gifts of complex assets. That can be absolutely true. You don't have experience with those type of gifts. But what's not true is I don't have any experience with those type of gifts, so I can't possibly work with that donor and close that gift. That's just not true. It's totally true to not have experience, but it's not true that you can't work with that donor, because there are all sorts of things you can bring into it. You can get help, you can learn. You've got options here other than I can't work with that donor. So those are a couple more examples. What I refer to this is talking back to your brain. So these are ways that we can talk back to our brain. All right, so let's go to the worksheet. All right, the first question is, where are you stuck? Where are you holding back? You look at your life in the past year. Don't overthink it, right? This is not an exercise in perfectionism. When you answer the questions on this round, it's not going to be the most profound. It's not going to be the most juicy. It's going to be what comes to mind first. The goal is for you to get some things down on paper, because you'll be revisiting this over the course of the rest of your life. So get some thoughts jotted down on paper. So where am I holding back, or where am I stuck? I'll give you my example, and then I'm going to zip it and hold space for 2 minutes for you. Example from my own life. Okay, I've always wanted to be a public speaker, but I'm still not a public speaker because I hold on to these limiting beliefs that if I try, like if I get out there on a stage, there's a possibility that I will just melt down. I don't have any evidence, but That's what I think. I think that I'm going to roll out onto a stage with bunches of people there in the audience, begin to share my message, and just like a full-on meltdown will happen. What even is that? Is it forgetting all my words? Is it passing out? Is it running off the stage? I don't know, but that's my limiting belief. And it's certainly been hanging around for the last year. So take 2 minutes and jot down for yourself, where are you being held back in your life? What's the last year been like? What are the things that you want to do that you haven't been doing? Okay, I'm going to start a timer and give you 2 minutes, and then I will come back in. Okay, you've got about 30 seconds. Remember, no perfectionism, okay? No need to do that to ourselves today. All right, how'd that go? Hopefully it wasn't too hard to think about some of the things that are holding us back. Usually there's a few and they're pretty obvious. Oh, there's Roscoe. Oh, and Jules is checking out. I think there are some kids walking by. Welcome to my house. Okay, question number 2. Here are my thoughts and beliefs that are holding me back. So we've identified where you've been held back. What are the thoughts and beliefs that are connected to that? And I kind of alluded to it before when I gave you my example about public speaking. So my thoughts and beliefs are like, I'm going to melt down and everybody's going to walk out. I'm going to melt down and they're going to write me on the internet. I'm going to melt down because my nervous system just is not what it needs to be. I don't have nerves of steel. I am forgetful and spacey, like piling on all these thoughts and beliefs that lead me to believe that if I got on a stage, I would have a complete meltdown and everybody would have a miserable time. So that's my example. Now I'm going to put myself on mute and give you 2 minutes to answer this for yourself. Okay, you got about a minute. Okay, how'd that go? Here's where we start getting to the juicy stuff. Question number 3 is, can I proceed in spite of these limiting beliefs, right? What is the very worst thing that could happen if I try? Like, would I be embarrassed? Would I feel overly vulnerable, etc.? So the example for me would be, what if I proceeded even though I might melt down? What is the worst thing that could happen? Okay, I would have a speaking engagement. I'd be out there on the stage. I would forget my words. Well, chances are I have some notes nearby. And while the audience is certainly wanting me to succeed and they don't want any bumbling and fumbling, they might be able to relate to me even better if I did make a mistake. What else? People would, let's say I really just, it was awful. I melted into a little ball. I ran off the stage. The worst thing that could happen is people would write negative reviews on the interwebs, and that would indeed be bad. But I wouldn't die from it. I could certainly recover from it. I wouldn't be able to get testimonials. Okay, fine, no big deal. You move on, you get another gig. Hi, Jules. You move on, you get another gig, and all's well. So, number 3, can you proceed in spite of these limiting beliefs or limiting factors? I'll give you 2 minutes to delve into that one. Okay, you've got a minute left. No perfectionism. Just write down whatever comes to mind because you'll revisit this later. The goal, we're retraining your brain right now. So just going through the exercises where the deliciousness is. Okay. All right. How'd it go? You seen the progression? I hope it's not hurting your brain too much. Sometimes these exercises require me to just really grind it out, but try to take a light approach to this because, you'll have chances to revise going forward. All right, here's when it gets really good. Are these thoughts and beliefs true? And do you have any evidence? So, truth be told, I probably use this more with colleagues than I do even with myself, because people come in and they've got, lots of thoughts and feelings about what might be happening, around them at work. And it's really helpful for me to kind of be able to intercept that by asking, like, tell me more about why you think that. Like, what have you seen that backs that up? And dare I ask, do you have any evidence? So in my case, when I'm doing my own work, using the example of public speaking, I would look at, what feedback have I gotten in the past, which I've only gotten positive feedback. And then I could tell myself, well, maybe people are only being nice. Well, okay, so I've watched playbacks of myself and I've thought, of course, we're our worst critics, but there are times when I thought, all right, that was pretty good. So I've got even my own assessment of myself, but for sure, I've got lots of really positive feedback. I don't have any negative feedback. Like, I don't have any examples of negative feedback about my public speaking. So if I'm asking myself, like, am I laboring under some misconception? Chances are yes. So this is where we begin throwing rocks at it, right? It's like, is it even true? Maybe, maybe not. So I'll give you 2 minutes to work on that. All right, just a couple more seconds to wrap it up. All right, cruising into number 5. If these limitations didn't exist, what action would I take? So in my case, if I wasn't laboring under the misconception that I'm a horrific public speaker and I might melt down, I would reach out to event organizers or, the heads of volunteer boards, or you name it. I would be reaching out to them to try to get on their stages or speak to their groups, some way to get my message out there. Instead, I'm not doing that, right? So the action that I would take, contacting event organizers to get on stages. It's easy, it's straightforward, but instead I'm, living in these limiting beliefs. So I'm going to put myself on mute. I'm going to set the timer for 2 minutes. Don't be a perfectionist. Just scratch out what first comes to mind, and I'll be back with you in 2 minutes. Okay, you've got a minute. Okay, we're back. My timer actually startled me. I was deep in thought. All right, so here's the last question, and here's the big payoff. Here's what my reality would look like if I took those actions. So in my case, I would be on stages. Like I would be fulfilling this dream of mine. It's super simple, right? If I were to reach out to event organizers, eventually somebody's going to say yes, and then another and another and another. So if I just kind of like went through this process, called the beliefs into question, asked myself what's the worst thing that would happen, asked myself what would I do if I didn't have these limiting beliefs or if I knew they weren't true. Here's what my reality would look like. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to come up with what your reality would look like if you followed these steps. Okay, you've got about a minute. All right, nicely done. Kudos to you. I hope that was satisfying. Please know that as you go through this again and again throughout your life, it's going to become easier and you are going to retrain your brain. So next time you stop yourself from doing something or thinking something or putting yourself out for others to try whether it's to try something new or to connect with people who you haven't before, or to connect with somebody who you've thought, oh, doesn't like you or something, you got to ask yourself, like, what are you afraid of? Is it true? Are you holding yourself back? The goal here is to take the positive momentum that you've just created right now, today, and use that going forward. You've retrained your brain a little bit. You've got some momentum. Now keep that moving forward. So before we conclude, I want to give you a couple of thoughts on the next steps for you. So I have a workshop that includes the work on limiting beliefs, but expands it to end up with a growth plan that you write for yourself that you will use for the rest of your life. So we start by talking about the 4 pillars of enduring success. We look at this from the categories of happiness, achievement, meaning, and legacy. We go through self, family, community, and world. So we connect these things for you to determine your definition of enduring success. We identify limiting beliefs, as you've just done now. And then we take all of that and we build a growth plan for you. So by the end of that workshop, you will have a document that you will revisit again and again and again that will outline your steps to achieving enduring success. So I would love for you to check that out. I have an on-demand version, and I'll give you the contact or the website for that. Other ways we can stay in touch, definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. It's hashtag Ann Murphy Philanthropy. Just put hashtag Ann Murphy Philanthropy and my stuff will pop up. Would love to be connected with you there. In addition, I have an e-newsletter. It's called Fundraising Now. I would love for you to consider joining. There's a link for that too, and I'll share that with you. You'll get a message from me every 4 to 5 to 6 days. I include freebies. I include tips and tricks for our industry. I include just new ways to think about best practices. I include industry news. So there's a lot of goodies there for you. It's delivered right to your inbox. You don't have to go out on the interweb and look for information. That content is right there for you. And then the other way is that I am launching into group coaching this year. And I would love to have you among my beta group. So if you are interested in being on the wait list to learn more about what that group might look like, and I can share with you when that's going to launch, I'll give you a link to sign up on the wait list. All right, so those are some ways that we can stay in touch. I would love to see you in my e-newsletter, love to see you on LinkedIn, love to see you in a small group. And please do check out that on-demand workshop to build your professional growth plan. I'd be delighted to have you take that and give me some feedback on how it worked for you. I'm getting great reviews on it so far. All right, thank you again. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for showing up for yourself, for me, and for the world. You're better equipped now to make the world a slightly better place today, and I know you will. Take care.